Turbo and 2K show.
What is up, 2K crew? Yes, your eyes do not deceive you. We are back after our little 2-week hiatus. I was just telling 2Ks that my day will be complete now because Pat McAfee's coming back, and so we're just like Pat. We took 2 weeks off. No big deal. No big deal. But yeah, shout out to everyone. I do see there are some folks watching us live. So if you're on the Facebook, I would highly suggest going to the YouTube side because you get a little bit better experience there. But regardless, we will try to entertain you and give you the up to the minute trade deadline happenings, I guess you could say. But for those of you on YouTube, if you're not subscribed already, which 2Ks, 90% of our YouTube views are from folks that aren't subscribed. Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird considering subscribing is free.
Yeah.
Subscribing is free, so hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified every time we go live. And for folks that are on the audio side, wherever you are consuming this, please feel free to give us a follow and give us a 5-star review. I mean, hell, we try. We're doing our best over here. So help us out. Help us skyrocket up those ranks of the Sports Talk podcast. But 2Ks, first of all, it's good to see you, brother.
It's good to see you.
I know we hung out Friday a little bit, but it seems like that life has kind of taken us in different directions here, which is fine. But it's good to be back. Mm-hmm. It's good to be back. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know about you, but when we don't do a show for a couple weeks, it's like I'm missing something. Mm-hmm. Like there's something, a part of me that has kind of not been there. And to be honest with you, we were going to do this show 3 weeks ago. So the timing is perfect for this. We are Tuesday at 6 o'clock, I believe, is the trade deadline, which is awesome. So yeah, let's dive into it, 2Ks. Let's get into what's happened already, and kind of give you. We'll then give you guys some kind of some insight as to what we think is going to happen, who's going where, and if it will make a difference. So 2Ks so far. I mean, we've got to kind of talk about the obvious one here, and I'm not so sure I'm thinking of the same obvious one as you.
Yeah.
But Shohei's staying put. I mean, everyone was clamoring about that. You know, where's he going? Where's he going? And you and I think we're kind of on that page where he's not going anywhere. Everyone just calm down. He's not going anywhere. What the offseason will bring, I think, is kind of the wild card in the room here. But for now, I mean, it comes out that Shohei's staying put. Then they make the big move to get Lucas Giolito, mm-hmm. and a dude from the bullpen, which they also got traded together before. So it's kind of like a package deal with those guys. It seems like they follow each other, and so that was kind of the first real big boom of the trade deadline so far.
Yeah, and it was like they got it out of the way as soon as they could.
Yeah.
Just I don't know if that was part of the plan to show them that. Basically, we're not moving Shohei. This is the plan. We're showing our cards now. It's honestly, it's a little bit shocking to me. When we first started talking about this, and I thought what was best was probably keeping Shohei and not just trading him away, just because that was before the Trout injury. That was before when Mike Trout went down. I think it was probably 3 or 4 days after that podcast we recorded that. I think that was kind of like the writing in the sand. Like maybe it is time that we trade him. He's probably not coming back. We don't have the money to compete with these teams like the Dodgers, like possibly the Yankees. Mm-hmm. These teams that we figure are going to be in there. Atlanta trying to make a run for him this offseason. So why not try to get something out of him instead of when he does walk, you end up with nothing. This is a situation for the Angels where I get it. You don't want to just piss off your fans, but your fans are going to – this is almost a lose-lose for them because
100%.
There's nothing right. You're going to piss them off if you traded him, and you're going to piss him off now in another year or so when he's doing the same stuff he's doing right now for another team, and you look back and you got nothing in return out of that. So it shocks me, and especially just – do you really think Lucas Giolito and the other pitcher that his name, I can't even think of his name right now.
Either.
Two rotation guys for the White Sox is going to change anything for this Angels team? Like,
I think what they're, I'm honestly proud of the Angels for taking this stand. I guarantee that GM did not want to be the guy who goes down in the history books as trading the greatest player that's ever lived. But on the other hand, you've got to wear it because this guy's going to have a huge price tag when it comes to free agency in the offseason. I have a very good, and one of the things that I think leads me to kind of believe this is going to happen is they had to have had a conversation with Shohei and his representation just to get a, hey, what are our chances of actually signing you for forever, for your whole career? Mm-hmm. Because yes, a player of that, I'm going to go out on a limb and say if he would have got traded, I don't think we've ever seen a package, even for a rental.
Even for a rental, yeah.
Even for a rental, that it would. The only one that I could really think of is like the Herschel Walker trade or what Mike Ditka put together to get Ricky Williams. I mean, you're basically mortgaging a whole year of your draft. But then again, that's football. Mm-hmm. Whereas in baseball, you can trade prospects and players. You can't trade draft picks.
Sure.
So it is a little bit different of a landscape. But I don't think we've ever seen a haul that would get, and I don't think we would again. Just because of who it is.
I mean, we're talking the best player that we've ever seen, and any one of these teams that's competing, you add that into the mix on, for instance, say obviously the Braves, they're already the best team in baseball without him.
Yeah.
But they add that in there. You got to think they're even more the favorite to go win the World Series. And then outside of the Braves, say a team like we're watching right here tonight, Baltimore Orioles, they go and make a move for him. I think Baltimore Orioles, go with the addition of Shohei. I would almost go to the point to say that the Baltimore Orioles are a better baseball team than the Atlanta Braves.
Oh yeah,
that's how good he is. Mm-hmm. And the same thing can be said for a lot of these other teams. A lot of these other teams that are in the mix, they add him, and I would almost say they're better than the Atlanta Braves now. That's how good this player is. You're not talking just a really good, serviceable player that's going to help you make that run to the playoffs. We're talking about a player that is probably going to win you a World Series if you were able to get him in a trade. So yeah, it shocks me, and I think probably there's a lot of teams around all of baseball that are a little bit upset that that because I think there was a lot of fans, I think there was a lot of players, there was a lot of coaches, GMs all around the game that were shocked when this trade happened and that Shohei is staying, and then a little bit upset too because they were probably putting their packages together and feeling it out to see what it was actually going to take to land a guy like this.
In all those teams that you mentioned that were hoping they were going to get in on the Shohei sweepstakes, I mean, that's just to even start to think about the haul. I mean, you would have to get at least one or two major leaguers, and then your best 5 prospects.
Yeah, it would have been crazy to see it all work its way out and just see what exactly it would have taken. Because it's a complicated situation with him. Being a rental player, you're going to have whoever makes this would have made this deal has him for 60 games, and then he maybe stays, but probably good chances, regardless of where he was traded to, he was going to test the market. Mm-hmm. Unless somebody just made this trade and then just basically offered the book to him. Yeah, and here's good chance that would have happened.
Here's a check, fill in the amount, and I'll sign it. Yep. I'll sign it. Now, with that being said, 2Ks, we're looking at the Angels to start off this thing, and they're 4 games back of the last wild card spot. They would have to jump the Yankees, the Red Sox, and the Astros because the Astros and Blue Jays are tied for the 2 and 3 spot there. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that this could happen. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to hinge on when Mike Trout comes back, when he does come back, how much of an impact is he? And because he hasn't really had that Mike Trout type of season. I mean, the power numbers were there, yes, but he's probably the worst batting average he's had since he's been a pro. So maybe this was something that was lingering and we really didn't even know. So getting it taken care of is going to – because if you have traditional Mike Trout for the last 50 games, let's say, 45 games, and, of course, Shohei, and then – Giolito was, I think a lot of folks were thinking he was going to be the best. Him and the kid from St. Louis, they were going to be like the top starters, you know. Then the bombshell breaks 2Ks, and Max Scherzer is on the move yet again. He gets traded from the Mets to the Rangers. And check this out, 2Ks. This is a tweet from Darren Ravel, at Darren Ravel over on X now. It's not Twitter anymore. It's X, so I think it's dumb. Max Scherzer will become the first athlete in sports history to be paid at least $15 million by 3 different teams in a single year. He's still getting paid $15 million from the Nats, dude. $28 million from the Mets, and the Rangers are picking up the rest of that the rest of the $15 million. Not a bad time to be Mr. Max Scherzer.
No. And
with all that being said, he really hasn't had like that Max Scherzer type of season. I think the last few starts, I think he's gotten kind of back into the groove of things, but this makes a Rangers team very scary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a very good situation for Scherzer now, to where you get out of that situation in New York. There was so much hope, and obviously it did not live up to that. And I think that's probably because I think Scherzer's the kind of guy that builds. He pitches his best baseball and just kind of works off the moment. So when everything is rolling really well with the team, I think he just slides right into there and he'll just keep it going, you know. But if he's in a situation where shit's not good and there's a struggle there, then you start to see kind of the wheels fall off with him. And it's not look, the wheels falling off on a guy like Max Scherzer is not like it doesn't mean that he's terrible. It's just he's not putting up his normal Max Scherzer numbers.
Yeah.
He's had a good year in most pitchers' standards.
Sure.
But to Max Scherzer standards, that the way he's pitched throughout his career and what we're used to, he's not pitching up to that level. Is it age? Is it just this dumpster fire of the Mets situation? That'd probably be a combination of both a little bit. But the guy can still fucking pitch, and him being a World Series champion and him pitching in a lot of big games in his career, him sliding into this situation now with this Texas Rangers team. The Texas Rangers, in my opinion, from what has happened, and I know we still have 2 more days of this thing until the deadline's done. The Texas Rangers have won the trade deadline so far.
Because not only that, they went and they get the kid from St. Louis, which I just looked his name up and forgot again, Jordan
Montgomery.
I don't know why I keep wanting to call him Carlson. It's Dylan Carlson, who's the center fielder there. It's probably. I mean, right now they are winning this trade deadline, unless you consider the Angels keeping Shohei. That's obviously a win, but it's not. I mean,
it's a win,
not a trade.
but it's a win right now, obviously, because you get to watch him for 60 more games with that uniform on.
Yeah.
But when we're talking here next year at this time, it's not going to be a win for that Angels team. It's not going to be a win for that Angels team in about 4 or 5 more months. It's going to be a loss. So that one, I don't even. It just doesn't. That one just didn't. It shocks me. It still shocks me. I don't know. I don't know what to even think there with that. The Mets. There was people last night. It kind of pissed me off listening to it because there was people, these fucking New York homers talking about this trade that the Mets, because the Mets, they bring over Acuna's little brother. Obviously, the name.
It's a big piece.
And he is a very good player. I think the name has kind of been very beneficial to him so far in this. When you have when you're the little brother of Ronald Acuna, who arguably the best player in the game right now, it helps. It definitely helps with having the same last name and coming from that. So I think that's aided it a little bit. But And they were talking about how the Mets were able to land that good of a talent on this bad of a year. And I'm like, shut the fuck up. This was not part of the plan.
No.
Because a couple months ago, you guys were supposed to win the World Series. Best team in baseball. You have two of the best pitchers in baseball history on the same, and then with everybody, Alonso, Lindor, and the list goes on of all these great players. And this team is absolutely loaded on paper.
Yes.
And they have fucking shit the bed. There is not one positive thing that you can say if you're a Mets fan to say that this was a successful trade. It wasn't supposed to fucking happen.
Right.
So, yeah, that was making me mad because I'm like, no, you don't try to bring something positive out of this situation because all I've heard is you people bitching all season long about the manager, the GM, the whole situation. So, shut the fuck up.
In the 2Ks, these are trades that the Rangers absolutely needed.
Oh, absolutely.
They're only a game up on the Astros as it sits right now.
They're great offensively, but the whole season it's been they have pitched the ball pretty well, but eventually we've never heard of these. No. Outside of Evaldi, we've really never heard of any of these guys that have been performing pretty well. So you have to bring in help there, and they've done it. And now all of a sudden, maybe outside of this Baltimore team that I think is really, really good, and I think that they're going to make some moves here in the next day or two to even make themselves better, because they're kind of the same situation as the Rangers where they need help with the pitching staff, and I think we see Baltimore make a move or two to boost that pitching staff. But those two offenses are the two best offenses in the American League when you talk about the Orioles and the Texas Rangers. So Texas has made their moves, and I would say right now Texas is the better team. 2 more days, we'll see what Baltimore does, because in my opinion, I have both of those teams over the Rays.
Yeah, yep. It'll be interesting to see what if anything the Rays do, because they're not really that team that traditionally is a big buyer. I mean, and another big move, 2Ks, is this is a tweet from Jeff Passan, the Jet. The Toronto Blue Jays are finalizing a trade to acquire right-handed reliever Jordan Hicks from the St. Louis Cardinals, sources tell ESPN. With Jordan Romano on the injured list, the Blue Jays get arguably the best relief arm on the market. That's huge. I mean, like I just said, with the wild card, they're tied with the Astros, and the Red Sox are 2.5 back of both of them. The Yankees are 3, and then the Angels are 4. Seattle's 4.5. So there's definitely some movers and some shakers in there for sure. And just to kind of give you an idea, 2Ks, the last 10, the Blue Jays are 6-4. The Astros are also 6-4. The Red Sox and Yankees are 5-5, and the Angels and Mariners are 7-3. So they definitely needed to do something to bolster that, and I'm honestly excited to see what this Blue Jays team can do in the playoffs, because I think you and I both have been very high on that team with all that young talent. They just haven't been able to pitch it. Yep. And they finally got a guy in Kevin Gausman that has been lights out. And, this is a huge move for them. Huge move for them. And a couple here that I guess it's trades that didn't happen. This is from our boy Jared Carabas. Per at Jesse Rogers ESPN, the Cubs will not be trading Cody Bellinger. Would be wild to flip him after winning 8 straight to get within 3.5 games of first place and 3 back of the wild card. So that must mean Stroh is off the table now too. So what big names are left? Verlander and who? And we will get to that here in a second.
Yeah, that situation for the Cubs is a tough one, because that they're in a very, very winnable division, and obviously, the way that things started after the All-Star break, they were struggling. They were, they were struggling bad, and then to get hot here in recent weeks, they have a chance. Unfortunately, with what I see above them, especially with like Cincinnati with De La Cruz, McCain, just some of these stud rookies that have come up. If I'm the Cubs, I think you got to sell. Like I don't see them catching the Reds, and I don't see them being able to slide in over some of those other teams. Like we're talking the Diamondbacks,
Diamondbacks, Phillies, Marlins, Brewers,
Yeah,
Giants.
I mean, there's a lot of really good teams there. I don't think the Cubs catch them. So, as good of a year as Bellinger's having, if you move a guy like Cody Bellinger, who is a rental player, he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. I think you can get something really good. There's going to be teams that are definitely looking for a left-handed batter who's hitting right around 300, hitting for power. Very good defensively. Like
Always
there's a lot
been,
of really good things about Bellinger's game to where if you make a move for him, I think you can land something pretty good. So I'm not convinced that story is just bullshit either. I think there's a lot of things and a lot of mind fucks that are played with these GMs and leading up to the deadline. And, you try to get because when you say something like this, it instantly makes other GMs desperate. Mm-hmm. Well, what about if we throw this extra piece? And I think that there's games that are being played there.
Oh yeah.
It would not shock me if Bellinger's moved, and I think if the Cubs walk out of this deadline and they still have Bellinger on their roster, I think they made a mistake.
Yeah, and my headphones are stuck. There we go. And yeah, that to me, I honestly think for the Cubs, it's probably more likely that that they win the division rather than the wild card, just because of the amount of teams they would have to jump. I mean,
and I just don't see how they catch the Reds.
And they're 4 games back of the Reds. And as I mentioned, the Cubs, their last 10 they're 8-2. Well, you know what? 2Ks, the Reds are 7-3.
Yeah.
And they have probably one of the more electric players on the field. Just had a 4-hit day today. Sorry about it. And that team is the Reds are another team that need pitching.
Yeah, and I think that, and that's the thing too, is I think you have the Cubs who are deciding if they're going to keep guys or if they're going to move guys, and then you have, and when you talk about the Reds, I think the Reds are going to be big time buyers.
They have to.
And that's a team that I see. Like I would like to see me as being a Tigers fan. Obviously, we have 2 pitchers that we have to sell in these next 2 days. I would love to see them link up with the Reds just because of how good their farm system is. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they got young talent that's at the major league level right now. That means you're probably trapping some guys in the minors that just can't get up because they don't have a spot for them. Mm-hmm. So maybe and the Tigers do have some pitching. Not only do they have 2 pitchers that are veterans that are going up on free agent years, they also have some young pitching that maybe they could throw in to land somebody a little bit bigger in that organization. If you were willing to throw in a guy like Alex Faedo, Matt Manning, if you were to throw one of these bigger young names in there. The Tigers are very deep with pitching.
Yeah.
If there's anything since the A.J. Hinch era has started in Detroit, if there's anything you can kind of hang your hat on with Detroit is Chris Fetter, the pitching coach, has been able to make good with about anything he's been given.
It's true.
So maybe it's time that, and the Tigers, they need bats. It's obvious. When your team leaders has 14 home runs at this time of the season, you obviously need bats. So maybe it's time that the Tigers move some of these younger, the obvious ones. We all know Eduardo's not going to be in a Tigers uniform for after Tuesday. We all know Michael Lorenzen's not going to be in a Tigers uniform after Tuesday. Maybe it's time the Tigers take a look at moving one of these Faedos, Matt Manning. I mean, the only one to me that I would say is completely untouchable is Skubal.
Yeah, hands down.
Other than that, I would definitely be listening to offers.
Oh yeah, and that something else has got to give. There's too many teams that are desperate to fill these needs, and there's teams like the Cubs, like the Tigers, that have these assets. That is it gonna drive the price up? I think ultimately yes. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's supply and demand. Mm-hmm. So yes, I honestly do believe it will drive the price up. But here's another one, 2Ks, that I'm happy, and this is from Tyler Milliken. According to @Bradfo, he's hearing from other teams that the Red Sox would have to be blown away to deal James Paxton. Exactly the way to go about it. If someone wants to go nuts, it's a convo. Then you can flip that prospect capital for an impact young arm with team control. Otherwise, he has a ton of value to the team down the stretch. Then you get that comp pick. The Red Sox are in a very different situation, 2Ks, and I'd kind of like to get your perspective on it, because they are 2.5 games back right now of the last wild card spot. And I could see dealing Paxton. I really could, because he's on a 1-year deal. This was kind of a prove-it deal for him, and he's done very well. I mean, he's come back from the injuries, and everything is looking, all signs are go. But if you think about it, they're getting Chris Sale back, probably within the next week. Trevor Story's coming back within the next week. Garrett Whitlock. I mean, there's a laundry list of guys that are coming back here in the next 2 weeks. So do the Red Sox need to go out and make a big splash move? For pitching, I don't. Their bullpen's just fine. Canley's been a very shocking addition. They could stand to probably get another bat. I would not trade Adam Duvall. But with these pitchers coming back, there's been the conversation, do you put Whitlock in the bullpen? If we do keep Paxton, I think that's what's going to happen. And they asked him, like, well, would you be upset pitching out of the bullpen? And he goes, to be on the team, I'd be the janitor. So I really don't think there would be any bad blood or any, disappointment there. But what's your take, 2Ks, on the Red Sox being able to make the playoffs? Do you think it's a legit shot, wishy-washy, or they're just done?
I'm not ready to say that they're just done. I'm not ready to say that. And I would more so lean towards the wishy-washy. And that's the only reason I say that is because of the division that they play in.
Yeah.
That is a gauntlet, and they're going to have to, there's going to be a lot of games. Even the team that's behind them, the Yankees, now the Yankees are getting Aaron Judge back, so it's just going to be even more difficult to beat. To beat the worst team in it. The worst team in that division would be the best team in the AL Central. So
by 1 game.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's insane to me. And that's why, just because of what they have to go through, and you have to believe that Toronto's going to make moves here, to get better. You have to believe that Tampa Bay is going to try to get better. You have to believe that Baltimore is going to try to get better. You have to believe that Houston is going to try to improve. The Angels have already made trades. And Boston's in that situation where it's like, to me, I don't think Boston has a chance at, making any kind of a run. Obviously, you get to the playoffs, anything can happen.
Sure.
But I don't think that it would be very smart for Boston to make any big-time moves right now because of the young talent. This team's not going anywhere.
No.
This team has a lot of money. So when this offseason comes around, I think Boston's time to make moves would be during the offseason, leading up to the next season. I don't want to say just throw the fucking hat in, be done, but don't make any crazy moves here to try to improve yourself, because I don't think you're going to even get to the playoffs. Maybe you do sneak in, but I don't think you're. But my thing is, just stand pat. Play with what you have. Don't make any crazy moves. You got such good young talent that's on your roster right now, and then you have such good young talent in the minors that we haven't even seen yet, but they're only going to improve.
And definitely do not let any of those guys go.
And then spend some money. And we talked about it on Friday night when you were over at the house. Imagine if Boston brings Eovaldi back.
Just imagine if they would have re-signed him and not.
Because then we're not having. If Eovaldi's playing for Boston this season at the beginning of the year, we're talking about Boston being definite buyers in this.
Yeah, oh yeah.
They're not in second to last in this division. They're to me they're 1-2.
Yeah.
Somewhere right there, and they're playing buyers to try to make a run in this. So it's the difference of it's a Cy Young caliber pitcher that we're talking about. So
let's see here, and I'm right there with you. I mean, it scares me because they're on the verge right now, and I don't think it would be. I think it'd be an overreaction just to sell, and just say fuck it. We'll bank on next year. Because I mean, legitimately, they could trade Paxton, they could trade Duvall, they could trade Turner. All 3 very short contracts and very team friendly. But I think especially Turner, that would be a huge mistake because I think he's the leader of the team. He's the heart and soul of that team. So yeah, it's definitely something to watch. But I think the Red Sox are just good enough to entertain buying, but they're not bad enough to sell. And I think is where they're at. Well, let's catch up with some of the other big moves here, 2Ks. The Marlins get Dave Robertson from the Mets.
Sneaky good pickup. I mean, when as shitty as everything has been with the Mets this year, David Robertson has not been shitty.
No.
He's been as good as you can be.
Career resurgent year this year.
Yeah. So that's a sneaky good pickup for a team that I think is going to be very, very relevant here down the stretch.
Mm-hmm. And the Dodgers get Lance Lynn and Joe Kelly from the White Sox. Joe Kelly goes back to the Dodgers. He was one of the guys I was hoping would come to Boston.
Yeah.
I love Joe Kelly.
Yeah.
Just the way he goes about and does things, I love.
He just has that that douchiness to him, to where like if he's on your team, you obviously love him, but if he's not on your team, you probably hate him. Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me a little bit of like a AJ Przinsky douchebag. Mm-hmm. Not that I actually liked AJ, even though he was a White Sox for most of his time, and me being a Tigers fan, I did really like him, but. Most, if you asked around the league, about the only people that really liked him were White Sox fans, and because he was a douche, and that's all there is to it.
Well, it's like Kevin Youkilis.
Yes.
A lot of people did not like Kevin Youkilis.
Yeah. I never liked him from when Porcello had to fucking throw him over his shoulder and give him a whipping. Little fucking 20-year-old Rick Porcello out there. So ever since that happened, I was like, yeah, he's a fucking douche too.
And kind of it makes sense, but it doesn't. Carlos Santana goes to the Brewers, and that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. Hopefully, didn't give too much up to get him.
Yeah, Milwaukee is just like they just make these moves all the time, and the thing about it is like they're always pretty decent ball team. Like they win games, and I don't understand really what it is that they do and how they win games. Because when you look at their team, like they got Christian Yelich, who's hasn't been the same Christian Yelich as what we saw there for like a 3 or 4 year stretch. And then trying to name like any other players on that team is not really very easy. Yeah. I just fucking remembered that Ryan Braun didn't play there, and he hadn't played there for like the last 5 years. But I just thought that he was still playing for the Brewers because I never watch him, never see him. And
no, and you're right, because it seems like it's been a long time since that team's been relevant,
but they're never like bottom dwellers, like getting a top 5 pick in the draft.
No.
They always just like play too well, and then they never have like a great draft pick. They just like they always just have like the 15th pick of the draft, anywhere from 15 to the 20th pick of the draft, or they just barely slide into like a playoff spot some years, and then they get outed right off the bat, and like they're out of the playoffs before anybody even starts tuning into the playoffs, and it's just like. They're just that team, and they're never like an embarrassing team, but they're never good.
All right, 2Ks, this is where we get to put on our GM hat. We're going to give you the 2K crew, because 2Ks and I are both super plugged into all these GMs, and we're going to give you some predictions as to who's going where, and kind of we're going to have some fun with it. I'm going to start 2Ks. I think this one's going to blow your doors off. I think Luis Robert gets moved.
That would be a huge bat for any team. Team would be very, very fortunate to have him.
He's going to the Yankees.
Hey. God, that would piss me off, because I do like him, and and it's already bad enough that he plays for the White Sox, and it would be like, can it get any worse? Well, I guess it can if he ends up with the fucking Yankees.
Yeah. That's my big surprise one. Do I actually think it'll happen? It's the White Sox, so you never know. Mm-hmm. And with that roster, the way that it's been for the last 2 or 3 seasons, that's should on paper be very, very good, and they're very, very not. And I think the haul that Robert could get you would be quite substantial. And maybe this is something we should ask Christian. Is like, I have no idea what the farm system looks like for the White Sox, but it can't be that great. So yes, you're letting go of a very, very good player, but the haul, I think, would, especially because he wouldn't be a rental at this point.
Yeah.
But
like the only thing with the White Sox that you have to figure out about them is like, is it time to completely sell out on them? Yeah. Because just a couple years ago, we were talking about, this is a team that can be really, really good for a long time. Like Luis Robert, still in his mid-20s.
Yeah.
Eloy Jimenez, still in his mid-20s. The Berger kid has had a pretty good season this year. Still very young, mid-20s kid. So they have talent that's, very young. They haven't lived up to the expectations.
No, not even close.
And so to me, like, if you trade Luis Robert, then you trade Dylan Cease too. Like, you go all out. And you completely sell, and you're starting this all over again. But if you keep Dylan Cease and you move Luis Robert, like, I think Luis Robert is generational talent.
Yeah.
So if you walk out of the deadline and you move him and you still have Cease on your roster, I'm kind of upset if I'm a White Sox fan, because when's the next time you're going to get an opportunity at a talent like this? Like, Luis Robert is fucking good. Yeah. The only reason he doesn't get talked about a whole lot is because he's a Chicago White Sox. If he played for a lot of these other teams, or if his team was contending right now, we're talking about, possible MVP caliber player. So,
and you put him in the outfield in New York. You put his bat in the lineup with Judge and Stanton.
Yeah,
it's
insane.
Yeah, no, that doesn't fix the Yankees' pitching woes at all. But I think maybe it's one of those things where you just hit better than your pitching.
Try to hit your way through, which we've seen the Yankees try to do that a lot, and it's worked a little bit,
But then again, too, if you look at this Yankees regime as opposed to old Steinbrenner, I mean, the old Steinbrenner would have pulled the trigger on anything to make that team better.
Absolutely.
With this regime, it doesn't. They're not the spenders. They're not as kind of balls out as they once were. So what's a move 2Ks do you see, and where are they going? Luis Roberts fourth in baseball with home runs, by the way.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to talk about the Tigers here a little bit. Because obviously that's who I follow the most of. I think Eduardo is a Cincinnati Red.
I like that.
By the end of it, I think.
And to be honest with you, that'd be a really good fit for them.
Yeah, I think it's definitely what Cincinnati needs. I think the Tigers could maybe work their magic and maybe get their best return out of that team. Maybe not be afraid to throw something else in with it. I don't know if you. I'm still up in the air on what you do with the bullpen guys for Detroit, because I don't know if you like. Foley's been so good this year, been so good. Arguably one of the better, relief pitchers in all of baseball. Just doesn't get talked about a whole lot because he's a Tiger. But I don't know if you throw him in there just because he's got so much team control left. He's got 6 more years before he can even test, leaving Detroit. So, but I think Eduardo ends up with Cincinnati, and then I think that there's a good chance that Lorenzen ends up with Baltimore.
I like that. and be very good very good pickups for both teams.
Another one that is kind of intriguing to me too is Nolan Arenado.
They have said that Arenado and Goldschmidt are staying.
Yeah, and which like what we talked about earlier. Nolan Arenado is intriguing to me because there's a lot of control there with him because of the contract. He's obviously going to be wherever he goes for. So we could be talking about a huge haul for somebody to go after him. And there's some teams that are probably
should be a lot of teams. It should be like, okay, let's talk.
They're definitely going to want to talk on it. So I don't know, who. Was in the market, obviously, for a third baseman. I would say just about anybody would be in the market for a guy like Nolan Arenado. But it's going to be exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of pitchers moving because I think there's a lot of, that's what teams need is mostly pitchers. And if we've learned anything over the last few years, with this deadline is teams don't necessarily want to get rid of bats very often, you know, unless it's just a no-brainer. You got to get rid of a bat. But pitchers are kind of, I don't want to use the term expendable, but teams are definitely are definitely willing to throw up pitchers all over the place. So I think we see a lot of pitchers being moved.
Yeah, and I think in particular too, with the Dodgers in their pitching woes, I think you're going to see, and they have no problem throwing prospects and money around. So I think they're going to be in the hunt for probably both of the gentlemen you just talked about. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you this one too, Case. Verlander back to the Stros. I think that's kind of a no-brainer since the Mets have already let Scherzer go. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make sense to keep Verlander. And it'd just be a matter of, okay, how much of this ginormous contract are the Mets going to pay? And I think if they got something similar to what they got from the Rangers, I think that would be, and especially, the Astros have to get something. Mm-hmm. They have to get, especially with their banged up pitching staff, they need a starter in the worst way, just to keep pace with what the Rangers just did. So and to be honest with you, at this point in the season, I think I would much rather have Verlander than Scherzer. Verlander, like his last 10 starts, has been vintage Verlander.
Really good, yeah.
Kind of got off to a rough start with the injury right before the season. I think he probably came back a little too early, so we saw this kind of, regression, I guess you could say. But it's been vintage Verlander like I said, for the last 10 starts. And I think he's either there or a Dodger. Mm-hmm. So I think there's, and because of the pedigree that he is, because of the experience, the postseason, accolades, and just the sheer amount of teams that need starting pitching right now, I think it's going to drive that price up to where the Mets have no choice. Mm-hmm. Their farm system is garbage, especially when it comes to starting pitching. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're going to have to take the hit for a lot of that contract, but the return you have to make sure the return is right.
Sure. So
that's another one I have going. Do you have any others that you're just like, man, this is going to happen?
I just have ideas of guys that have to be moved, when you look around. For instance, I've sat here and talked about the Tigers all night long, so let's switch it up to some different teams because all the things that I obviously want to see happen. And we've talked a lot about the Mets and the Mets moving from guys.
I think you could see Tommy Pham leaving.
The one that's curious to me is who I'm really wanting to watch here, because they have a lot of obviously big pieces and they've underperformed to this point. What do the Padres do?
Yeah.
Do we see a Juan Soto move? Obviously the haul would be huge. Mm-hmm. You have to think, kind of long term with that Padres team is they're going to have to pay these guys sooner or later, and they can't pay them all. No. Maybe they can, but they're probably not going to, especially the amount of money that all these guys are going to need. And Soto has one more year, mm-hmm. but after next year, he's going to be a name that's going to have to be re-signed. And maybe this is. I don't think that Soto moves just because I think you can trade him next year and you're still going to get a huge haul out of him. Yeah. If you're in that point where you're selling. And also with this Padres team, they're so good on paper that you don't want to just give up after 1 year. Like 1 year, I had a lot of guys underperform. Guys haven't really lived up to what we're used to seeing out of them.
You were without Tatis for 60-something years.
Yeah. So I think you run it back again. I think they're that good to where maybe you make some moves in the offseason,
sure.
But you run it back. But I don't know. I'm curious on it. I'm curious because there might be a team that's willing to throw a huge haul at the Padres, and maybe they just won't be able to turn it down. And we see a guy like Soto being moved, or and then they also have pitching like
Blake
Snell. Snell has been awesome. He has been awesome. The haul would be huge. for him.
I was watching the Padres game, and I believe they were referring to him as Snellzilla. I'm like, what? Where did that come from? Because it doesn't even really make sense.
He's been awesome this
Yeah.
year. So I think that he's one that and at the same time I know that the Phillies are right up there in the mix of things too. But do we see the Phillies move on from some guys? I don't know. I think that they're probably in the mix too much to to really be sellers.
Yeah.
But I don't know. At some point you have to make that decision. Like, are we a playoff team? I understand once you get to the playoffs, anything can happen. But at the same time, you also can't get caught up in, like, if you have opportunities to move guys and benefit your future, you can't get caught up in just playing in a wild card game, being done, and playing for just that. Like, you have to look into what's best for in the long term of things. So,
And the aforementioned Blake Snell leads the majors with a 2.5 ERA, just to kind of give you a for instance there. So yeah, it's definitely something that because we're I guess you call baseball fans seam heads too, Case. Did you know that? So yeah, we're definitely seam heads. So we'll be enthralled in this, and yeah, if you're not already, go on the Facebook group, facebook.com/group/2KCrew, and hop in there because, man, 9 times out of 10, I get a notification from Facebook that one of the 2K crew has shared something in there before I get the ESPN notification. So hop on over there. It's a cool place, and we'd love to have you. Well, 2Ks, when it comes to winners and losers out of this, the biggest winner so far is the Rangers. And I think, too, the Dodgers have made a little bit of a splash, but I really don't think Lance Lynn is the end-all, be-all in the last move that they'll make. I think they're still going to be very active. I would expect the Braves to be. I'm not saying the Braves are going to go out and trade for Verlander, because I really don't think they need him or want him. But I would expect them to get pieces, like some bench pieces.
I think Braves, they've already addressed the back end of their bullpen a little bit with the trade that they made earlier in the week. I can't remember who it was, but it was a bullpen guy that was solid. And I would not be shocked to see them maybe try to go for another arm or two coming out of that bullpen. You see it in the playoffs where so many of these teams, they roll with bullpens. They might have 3 or 4 starters that start games for them, but very rarely do you see a team run 5-man rotation of starters through in the postseason. So, and that's the thing, too. It's not just going to be the Braves. I think you're going to see a lot of teams that are looking at pieces and bullpens, guys that can give them an inning, give them 2 innings. What we've seen in the last 5-6 years with baseball is it's a science now. It's putting this bullpen together and how we can get 1 through 1 inning, 2 innings. Obviously, if you have those 2 or 3 starters, you're going to roll with them for games. Yeah. But if it gives you a better chance to win a game throwing 6 or 7 different guys out of your bullpen than it does having your number 4 starter on the season pitch, you're going to roll with that bullpen game. So, and we see it in the regular season. So, and it's even more in the playoffs that we see that kind of stuff. So, I think there's going to be pitchers being moved all over the place. Come Tuesday. And
it's pieces like that are so important. Yet, unless you're a fan of the team that's trading said piece, the average baseball fan probably has no idea who the hell these guys are.
Sure.
So yeah, still with this new playoff kind of format, I think it's the trade deadline is always a whole lot more exciting than I think what it used to be, because more people are in it. More people have more stake in everything. So yeah. Well, 2Ks, let's get to our top 5 here before we wrap everything up tonight. 2K Crew, the top 5 list tonight is top 5 active starting pitchers. Top 5 active starting pitchers. 2K's your number 5.
Number 5, I'm going, even though he got up to a little bit of a shaky start, there was some injuries leading up into this season. This dude's a fucking Hall of Famer. I've been watching him for years, and there's no way I'm going to leave him out of my top 5. And if I am in the playoffs and I want this fucking guy in my rotation, I'm going Justin Verlander. I will not leave him out of my top 5.
It would be hard to leave him out for sure. I mean,
I'm biased in the situation. I get that, and I know that there's really, really good pitchers throughout the league right now, but I'm not leaving him out of my. There's no way I could leave him out of my top 5 right now.
And you're number 4.
Oh man, this is a tough one. Number 4, I have to go with Spencer Strider with the Braves. Just the fucking high octane. He doesn't go out there and pitch around guys very often. He challenges everybody. He strikes more batters out than anybody in the game. He's still young as shit. Only going to continue to get better. Just throws fucking darts up there. Fun. One of the best pitchers to watch in the game, obviously.
He has 199 strikeouts. The next closest is Kevin Gossman with 171. And in his last start, 2 Ks, he is the first Brave pitcher in history to have 10 Ks in 4 consecutive starts.
It's crazy.
And I think and especially that last start, I think the manager yanked him too quick. But yeah,
who was that against? I was just watching that game. I know what game you're talking about. Where I was like, I don't know if I agree with that. But yeah, I can't remember who it was.
But yeah, it's a good pick. It's a good pick. I'm a huge Strider fan. Number 3.
Number 3, kind of the opposite. Doesn't have like the flame throwing that we talk about with Strider, but just knows how to frickin' pitch. We talked about him earlier. Probably should have been the guy that the Boston Red Sox kept around, but make a very, very good argument that he's the American League Cy Young right now. Nathan Eovaldi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he pitches complete games, which is kind of unheard of right now. And you're number 2 Ks.
Number 2, another guy that kind of just knows how to frickin' pitch, pitches it all over the place. I believe he started for the National League in the All-Star game this year. Zach Gallen, Arizona Diamondbacks. Just knows how to frickin' pitch.
He's tied for the lead in wins with 11. There's him, Eovaldi, Strider, Zach Eflin, Taijuan Walker, and Shane McClanahan from Tampa, and Justin Steele. Sorry about that.
Number one. This one probably pains me. I don't think you're going to like it a whole lot, but the dude's been good for a long fucking time, and I'm not a big fan of him, but I'm going Garrett Cole. Dude's just a monster. I don't know if there's anybody in all of baseball that I would want to have the ball in a big game situation. Maybe the only one that I would take is who I said earlier, Verlander. In a big time situation, playoff game where I need a W, Garrett Cole is just a fucking workhorse.
He's got a 2.64 ERA, 9 wins. He's given up 13 home runs, has 149 strikeouts. Yeah, he's
even in his bad games when he gets hit around a little bit and say he gives up 3 or 4 runs and that's a bad game for him, he still gives you 7 innings. Like, he's just a workhorse. You basically, when he pitches, and this is how what I consider with aces is when you pitch. There's 2 things that I consider that I'm is huge with when you have a really good ace. You have those guys that when you have that ace, he doesn't allow losing streaks. He stops them, and even on the days when he starts games, your bullpen's going to get a break.
Absolutely.
You closer might have to throw that game. But everybody else in that bullpen is probably going to get a break because this guy's going to give me 7-8 innings strong, and everybody else can just chill the fuck out. And that is huge when you talk about, you get into the middle of the season, the middle of the summer, like what we're in right now, and if you have a game where you have one guy pitching and everybody else, other than maybe your closer and your setup man, can take a break for the whole game, it's huge.
I 100% agree. 100% agree. All right, my top 5. Number 5. I'm going to have to go Shane McClanahan. Really love this kid. He's got a 3.0 ERA, tied with the league lead with 11 wins, only 1 loss, 2 Ks. And Yeah, the kid's just been dealing that, even though that Tampa Bay team has been on kind of a slide, or I don't think it's fair to call it a slide. I think they've come down to earth wherever everyone thought they were going to be. My number 4, I have to agree with Nathan Eovaldi. Love him. Like we already said, I wish he was still in Boston, which would have been awesome. Number 3, I have to agree with Zach Gallen. I mean, he is all around. I mean, he's most likely the NL Cy Young. Him and I think it's going to come down to him and Spencer Strider. Who's going to get that? Number 2, I'm going to go with Garrett Cole, and which leaves my number 1. I'm putting Strider up at number 1. That's how high I am on this kid. I love watching him. Dude's got tree trunks for legs. It is just crazy.
Yeah, there's nobody in baseball more fun to watch pitch than him.
No, and not only is it fun to watch, but he is awesome. He's electric, and yeah, I'm on Team Stash. I'm on Team Stash, and boy, as the sun went down 2Ks, our video got really dark. Probably should have adjusted that. Well, 2Ks, is there anything else that we need to wrap up?
No. No, it's going to be this next couple of days. This is when you're. I like this. This has always been one of my favorite times in all of baseball. Now, obviously, I like it so much more when your teams are being buyers.
Sure.
When your teams are being sellers, I think it's a lot more stressful because you're just like, please fucking make something happen.
Right.
And it's the first deadline in the Scott Harris era, so it's just like, what are we gonna see? I'm excited to see it. I hope that they're able to get something good out of these couple of pieces that are gonna be moved. It's a little bit. It sucks a little bit. I mean, when the Tigers signed Eduardo 2 years ago, I was not hoping that he was going to be a guy that we were trying to trade 2 years later.
Sure.
Unfortunately, that's where we're at and with things. He's been good in the time. This year he has had a very good season for them so far. I hope that he is able to get with a contender. I expect him to be with a contender after Tuesday. So, and then Michael Lorenzen also. My expectation for him at the beginning of this year was to fucking do nothing. And he was their all-star. He pitched great. He pitched good in the All-Star game. He had a 3-up, 3-down inning in the All-Star game, and he's been nothing. He's been good all season long. So I hope he goes on and is a contender. And it would be nice to see, one of these guys that the Tigers move on from here in the next 2 days, be a World Series champion. When it's all said and done. So hopefully it works out for both parties. I'm excited about it though. This is always one of the most exciting parts of the baseball season. Just because there's going to be a lot of teams trying to get better. There's going to be a lot of teams trying to make their futures better, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it is definitely a time of year that you're going to be plastered to your phone, and hoping that all of your notifications are turned on so that you can stay up to date with everything. Well, 2K crew, it has been an awesome time. We will be back again, same bat time, same bat channel next week. And as always, Jim Rome, we're coming for you.